Yes. That looks like healthy food today. I might just take some food. It's never healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasure to be here at Florence. We have some connection with Florence. Wife and I away from Kentucky, Cincinnati area, for years, and now started back in 2019. Prior to that, we did the Fort Mission. Peter, and my wife is from Florence. And her mother, Chris Tucker, was the bookkeeper for the water department for about 25 years until she retired. And she lived on Sanders Drive, just off of Dixie, right on that border with Bear Laker. And she passed away on the Father's Day in June, 94, right there years of age. Powerful woman, strong woman, widowed for many years, raised 3 children. So one of them I married. And so I have that kind of connection with strong middle women. And I found out that Florence is named after James Conner. What is the name? 1828. The name Florence Connerville after himself. There was already a Connerville, so he named it after his wife, Florence. So therefore, powerful women have been a part of my life, and as Mark's just mentioned, part of the CAC. 3 young women in their 20s decided, well, it's going to be too competitive to start a museum in New York City. That's a big surprise, but they were encouraged to think about Cincinnati. So they came to Cincinnati, where they were from, and started to become the modern art society. The base of 1939, year that they were in, those years, the Yankees, they were. But they were very strong-willed, as Mark just mentioned. And then years later, we would know that in 2003 we would have various juvenile women who was jostling and making her way amongst girls' ways men. Powerful women. And this building, and Mark has mentioned, after whom she would receive become the Nobel Prize for Architecture, which is the Christmas Prize, because of this building, contemporary art. So just real quickly, my background, I've been around mostly in the higher education, but started out in advancement, Children's Hospital Medical Center years ago, Chapter College, University of Cincinnati, University of Michigan, and Boston College, Contemporary Art Center. So that's a little bit about my background. Right. Okay. First of all, yes. How many of you come into Cincinnati on a regular basis? How much do you feel that it's kind of part of your repertoire when going? Mm-hmm. You go down for entertainment. Mm-hmm. And when you go downtown, what sort of things do you do? Okay, maybe go to a game. Anything else? I'm sorry? I didn't hear you. Oh, some shows? Okay. So have you ever thought about just wandering into the Contemporary Art Center? It's right there, downtown, close to Aronoff, block from Fountain Square. This building, as has been pointed out already, sticks out. It has a lot of movement, dynamism to it. You don't see these everywhere. And again, this was known around the world. This building was quite prominent. When it first opened, it was said to be the most significant work of architecture in the United States since the Cold War. And it was the first museum built by a woman in the United States. And after which she won the Nobel Prize for that. So it's a significant building. But it's a place where you can just wander in and say something that's quite different. So we invite you, when you are in downtown Cincinnati, to consider this very fact. It's a place of gathering. Wander in there, have a very fine meal. In fact, our restaurant, Fausto's, is on the top of the city of Cincinnati. And then you can just take the steps. Mark mentioned there's free admission. So there's not a lot of investment to make your way through there. wander through and just expose yourself to this building. I've been doing some reading about how our brain is enhanced when we extend it through things that make us challenged. And architecture is one of those ways that we challenge our mind. And hence this building will do that. Look at the inside. You don't see that. You don't see that. And may I say, Fifth Third lobby or most of the institutions, that's certainly not the art museum, but it's a place of great dynamism, a place of great energy, interest, and definitely something you don't see today. Now, as was also mentioned, I think Don mentioned that contemporary art is just that, the art of the moment. Mm-hmm. Artists who are living today, who are experimenting, because every work of art isn't not looking at ancient Egypt, we're not looking at the Impressionists, we're not looking at 20th century or 19th century American art. These are artists that are living today, putting out new, fresh art all the time. So when you go in there, don't be surprised that some things you're going to come out and say, what in the world is this? I don't understand. I don't know where to enter into it. I'm confused. That's fine. I am too. Marcus is too. And a lot of people are. But that's part of the challenge. That's part of the invigoration. And sometimes it can run you the wrong way. And we've got a history of that. But that's part of people experimenting, helping us to look at things afresh, new perspectives, new ideas. And hence, that's the very nature of contemporary art. So don't feel threatened by it. I, anytime, can get offended too, or I just feel it's not working right for me. That's fine. Recognize that that's something not to be afraid of, but something to embrace. However, as you go in, you will find things of great interest. Now, I want to speak to one thing that I think coming from Florence will help you to appreciate. But I was thinking about this talk, I was thinking about the Northern Kentucky. Marcus and I have spoken in Cincinnati and several Rotaries already. Northern Kentucky, of course, is across the river. And many times we say, well, the river is wide. And then you also hear, no, we need to consider the river as a national, or as a natural landmark, not as a barrier. But I'm also thinking about Northern Kentucky, Florence, how much it has changed over the years. We talk about change. As I mentioned, Chris took my mother-in-law in the Sears Roebuck house, and she went in there, what was it, 1950s or so? And this was all farming. There was nothing here. And look at it today. We are one of the major supply chain hubs in the country. CVG Airport has 84 flights going every day, flights around the world. And it is a place where Amazon flies in and out of, DHL, FedEx, UPS, in and out, all around the world. A place of great commerce. You talk about movement, change, dynamism. And then you have part of your industries as well. You have the automotive manufacturing industry here in Northern Kentucky. You have aerospace engineering as well. And you also have one of the major infrastructure landmarks of the country. Smith Bridge. 160,000 cars cross that every day. $30 billion worth of commerce crosses it every year. 3% of the $21 trillion GDP of the United States crosses across that bridge. And that shows that Northern Kentucky is not a sleepy place. There is a lot of movement here. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of dynamism. There's a lot of diversity. There's things that have totally changed the landscape in many years, and it's going quicker still. You have a very prominent architect, and the leaders architect, the Ascent in Covington, that also got national recognition. So anybody who kind of says, well, there's Cincinnati and there's Northern Kentucky, not at all. Northern Kentucky is a place of great vibrancy, change, dynamism. And that is what a lot of this contemporary arts is about as well. Change, dynamism. Marcus mentioned our mission statement to bring art and what's key here, the creative process to all people, regardless of income, regardless of diversity, ethnicity, race, whatever. The creative process so that you can open your minds, discover new ways of seeing, new ways of living. But the creative process, change, movement, diversity, all that is part of the process. You think of anything that you do, and you have to think it through. You got to say, how do I confront this problem? How am I creative? It's a process. And we all must go through life that way. If we're not able to embrace process, we're going to have a hard time moving through life because life changes, it's unpredictable, and we need to do that. So our art can reflect it. And so here I'm going to put the three artists and the other side of the fourth artist. As Marcus mentioned, we just concluded an exhibition called The Regional. And here are two artists from that. Lisa Lewis and Ben Gunn. Lisa was born in Covington. She's got her Master's of Fine Arts at Yale and came back and now lives in Covington. Now, I don't know if you can see this quite well, but you can see here, these are buildings. These are homes in Covington. And you see embossed on them are pictures. Can you see that fair enough? Mm-hmm. Those are pictures of Anissa from her childhood. And here she is showing through her medium of this art, through photography, of how change of moving from a house, I can still have my memories lodged in this place. Mm-hmm. How many of you may have moved around different homes? Mm-hmm. Or now, if I go back to Miss Tucker's home that just sold, I can see memories there when I asked for my wife's hand in that bedroom, in that room there of her house, where I used to visit her all the time. And so we have memories associated with place. And that's what Anissa is bringing out. That things change around us, but we can still anchor our memories in architecture, in buildings, in homes. Dan Gunn, he is from Kansas City, Missouri, where the regional has now gone to. And here you see something that looks interesting. You have a big old massive frog on the floor. And then you have two what looks like fabrics, drapes. They look like drapes, don't they? Textile drapes. But they're not. That's pieces of wood, little blocks of wood, all stitched together with cord. And it makes it look like drapes. So he's adopting the type of art form where it is not as you think it is. It deals with illusions. And the frog pertains to a Brothers Grimm fairy tale called The Ungrateful Son. So he's drawn upon folk art. Brothers Grimm, Cinderella, Hansel and Gretel, heard those? Brothers Grimm. And here he's trying to make a point that it's not as you think it is. Because here in the regional, they were trying to give attention to the Midwest, to the heritage, the creative talent, the history, all of the Midwest, so that it is not just a flyover. But Dan says, most people think of the Midwest as bucolic, pastoral, rolling hills, very homogeneous, nice, friendly communities. And he says, it's not like that. There's great diversity. Think of all the immigrations come in. And of course, we are very familiar with a lot of strife, racial strife, social classes strife. Things have changed dramatically. And so he's using the art form here to show that, yes, it's one thing, but it's also not as you always think it is. So that's what he's saying about that. Julie Morrill, this is currently right now in the CEC on our fourth floor. Now you would think that we have some delayed work here that we need to be doing on our building. And a little bit budget money would help us to fix that wall. Actually, this is a Master of Fine Arts student from, I believe, University of Cincinnati. We have an exhibition right now with Master of Fine Arts students from Miami University and UC. And she is showing the way in which even architecture buildings can kind of break down and fall apart. All right. And so here she, through means of plaster and clay, that over time, this begins to break down even more so. Once again, the element of change, movement of things not always staying in the same way. Same way North Kentucky changes. So here she is showing how even buildings, our lives, everything goes through a process. Decay, change. We have to live. And then finally, this is Matthew Angelo Harrison. Also, this was in the regional. He is an artist from Detroit. His parents came part of the Great Black Migration to Detroit to be part of the auto industry. But in going up into Detroit years ago, there was a lot of cultural displacement. And some of the African-American communities, and not only them, but these, didn't always feel welcomed. And so there was a lot of difficulty. So there's a cultural running up against industrialization, automotive industry. And here here he's taken African masks to make allusion to his own African heritage. And in place within it is an auto machine part in there to signify the industry that he's referring to. And the fact that the mask is laying on its side as opposed to upright and very proper is showing kind of that sense of loss, sense of disempowerment. And so he's referring here to both the interaction between culture and industry. So all these things are way artists are addressing the elements of change, movement, dynamism, and diversity. As we said, the CAC is a wonderful place in which to visit, wander into, come in, and it's also a place where we invite you to have an event. You can have one of your regional meetings at the CAC. And if you have anyone getting married, or has a child, or a grandchild, or who knows, you might be remarried still. Come to the CAC, and it's a place where a lot of people are coming back to have their events and find great opportunities for experience and building. This is our board of trustees. You might recognize some of these names across the landscape. Some of them have lived in Northern Kentucky, of course, because we're all part of the region, and others throughout Cincinnati. We have the executive committee, board members, lifetime trustees, and mayor. You may not necessarily say the contemporary arts is the kind of art form that I embrace all the time. But I feel that people need to look at the CAC and what it contributes to our region. As I just mentioned, it symbolizes change, it symbolizes dynamism, it symbolizes a global connectivity. We have artists come all around the world to show the CAC. But we have local artists as well. Local, global, global, local. And we express something that is of great significance for our region. And so it's a place that Cincinnati needs. And we wish to have your own affirmation of it through your support. You can become a member, and you can also become a sponsor or just a contributor in any way possible. But this is a way to which you are affirming the values that we're trying to inculcate here in our region. And you can bring sponsorship opportunities for an exhibition of performances. Our Marcus mentioned our creativity center that's currently underway. It should be completed by the end of this summer. And this is where the creative process will really come alive, because the art form that you see throughout the building is people experimenting all the time. Now, child, family member, adult, anyone can go up to the 6th floor and actually make things, but not and with some high technology, with very invigorating space, and see the landscape, the cityscape throughout the window. Where the creative process is actually made. Then you go back outside. Our educational programs. We are not just serving thousands of kids. I'm not literally thousands of kids in the greater Cincinnati area, but also we are very much involved here in Northern Kentucky. We have homeschool programs in Boone, Berlanger, Covington libraries. 20% of our teens program, and that's in the thousands. And 30% of our family programs come from Northern Kentucky. Up to 1,800 kids and families are served each year in the Contemporary Arts Center in Northern Kentucky. We visit Boone County High School, Lloyd High School, Tigger Middle School, Newport High School, Newport Central Catholic, 30, 45 students that we work closely with. And we work with 75 to 100 Northern Kentucky teachers. So we are very much an asset to Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky is an asset. So your support of our educational programs helps us, helps you. And then also, because of this building is so significant, next year, 2023, we'll be recognizing the 20th anniversary of this building and the significance, and because it not only has regional significance, national significance, but it represents a lot for our region, and we wish to see that sure. So you can give to the preservation of the building, and of course, to the CAC. Ways in which you can support the very idea of the Contemporary Arts Center. That's my talk, this talk. So if you have any questions, Academy, Bellstones is open for lunch, right now, basically Monday through Friday, from 10:30. Yeah. Pointed it out. I did mention, the top three, top one, best price in Cincinnati. Final Fridays. We have for $39, tip of the hat to our founding in 1939. You get a 3-course meal at Fausto in the evening. If you want to go there, $39, you let me know, and I'll get you a place. But eating over there. Building. It's a combination of the plaster and the clay that she's put on there interacting with the building itself. And this is what's so neat about it. See, you can, Marcus and I can walk through a gallery one day, next day, there's a wall. That wall was up. I thought about it briefly, but I did that to the presentation. Before Marcus arrived, we had those bills. And he's chisels facing one of his exhibitions, part of his exhibition on our fifth floor was an in-house explosion. We had to have special provisions and field a fire marshal on site for it to occur. What they did is they built a new wall. They put explosives behind it and then plastered over that. And then we all stood back. Some were hidden in the restrooms behind shields and had in the camera. And they pressed the button. You're looking at this white wall. And then 3 seconds later, also, boom, this explosion. And you can see the detritus, the shrapnel coming at you. And it is pockmarking the whole building. And out of that explosion emerges the word identity. And everything crumbles. And that was, as far as we know, the first explosion, controlled explosion that any museum has had in the country. So that tells you. Yes, on this is our entire exhibition here. All of these includes our performance program is currently underway this week. It's a way to learn about the exhibition and how to then also a tripod. drives a family. Yeah. Thank you.
I will say as the director of the library, CAC does some wonderful programs because they have been in our library program. So thank you. Great program. Just a couple more reminders. Remember, we do not have a meeting next Monday. And then April 26th, bring a friend. We're having a Rotary open house. Anything else for the good group? Yeah. Let everyone know about the 18th, where the meeting will be.
Yeah.